MSW Media. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Today, I'm joined by the host of Justice Matters and former federal prosecutor, Glenn Kirschner. Glenn, hello.
Hey, G, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I wanted to have you on today because we have a lot of breaking news going on behind the scenes. And when I say behind the scenes, I mean behind the wall of the very important Ukraine coverage that is, that we're seeing in the media now. But a couple of questions for you about some things that have popped up here in the last couple of days. We now have the first statement in a federal filing tying Trump to the conspiracy to obstruct the electoral vote count. You and I have been talking about this for a very long time, right? The pyramid, getting the overt criminals, the foot soldiers on 1512C2, obstructing an official proceeding, and then working up the ladder to establish the plot to obstruct the count, and that it includes Donald. And, of course, asking several boots-on-the-ground guys to sign affidavits saying they wanted to stop the count on Trump's orders. And, of course, securing guilty pleas that they intended to stop or delay the count. And now we have Department of Justice connecting Donald's tweet about the quote-unquote wild protest directly to the actions of the Proud Boys, namely Aimee Carrero, in this latest court filing, to detain him pre-trial. But you say that it goes back even further than the December 19th Trump wild tweet to something else Donald said. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and, AG, sometimes I feel I'm a little slow on the uptake, but it continues to come into full focus. And I kind of see this in part as an old Army prosecutor. I see it in part as a federal prosecutor. But I think now, and you were the first one that caught, as far as I noticed, caught this little nugget in the Aimee Carrero detention motion, whereby the prosecutor said, no, Judge, Aimee Carrero should not be released back to the community. This is not catch and release. He needs to be jailed pending trial because he's both a danger and a flight risk. So, and you noted that they said that in, I think, the opening salvo, when they were relating some of the facts, that the Proud Boys mobilized when Donald Trump sent out that tweet on December 19th, come to D.C. on January 6th, will be wild. Interestingly, they didn't name Donald Trump, but I think we all know who sent that tweet. So you picked that up. I retweeted it. I didn't even pretend it was original thinking on my part. And then I think there are 3 dates that basically provide almost everything you need to see that Donald Trump is criminally culpable for the conspiracy. So if we go back to September 29th of 2020, that's when he basically told the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. That was his recruiting call, right? Then on December 19th, with that tweet, come to D.C. on January 6th, will be wild, he was activating the Proud Boys after telling them to stand by. On January 6th, he deployed and he directed the attack. He directed the Proud Boys and others. And when you look at the language he used on January 6th, he said, go to the Capitol and stop the certification of Joe Biden's win. Helpfully, from this old prosecutor's perspective, he called Joe Biden's win the steal. We know it wasn't a steal. We can prove with Donald Trump's own executive branch officials that it wasn't a steal, and they told him so. So what does that do? That provides direct evidence of his corrupt intent in a way that I rarely had when I was prosecuting cases. So I think those 3 dates, he told his troops to stand by, he activated them, and then he directed them to attack. This is a conspiracy indictment that drafts itself, and Donald Trump is either the leader of the conspiracy or the hub of a hub and spoke conspiracy. But I am more convinced than ever that the Department of Justice is building precisely to what you and I have been discussing for so long.
Yeah, and one of those officials, executive branch officials, was obviously Bill Barr. I mean, there were so many. But then we also have those Eastman emails, right? 111 of which we know what one of them says, because Greg Jacob, Vice President Mike Pence's general counsel, gave that to the committee and testified about it, where Eastman said, hey, look, you broke the law. We broke the law already. Debate went on for more than 2 hours. The vice president already broke the law. So why not just break it one more little time and delay this 10 more days? And then we also have testimony from Greg Jacob saying that Eastman told Pence and presumably Trump, but we don't know, hey, no Supreme Court justice is going to buy this. So, we need to do this a different way. And that sort of goes to corrupt intent, because that shows that they all knew, at least in the Pence sphere, that Donald lost the election and that they were violating the law. But something else I wanted to ask you about. There was a document, according to the New York Times, that was found on Enrique Tarrio. And that document instructed militia members. There was 5 things, but one of the instructions was to cause trouble at nearby buildings to distract law enforcement, like by pulling a fire alarm, for example. But that sent off alarm bells in my head and made me think of those planted pipe bombs. And I just think it's very interesting that Jim Jordan sent a letter to Christopher Wray on March 9th saying, hey, we have a whistleblower who says that the FBI isn't giving any information to my committee. They're only giving information to the January 6th committee. We demand to know what's happening with the pipe bombs. And then the day before that is when Enrique Tarrio was arrested and warrants were served. And the FBI raided 2 other Proud Boys named Stewart and Bertino, who haven't been charged yet. Now, why would you raid someone's house as opposed to simply arresting them like they did with Tarrio or so many of the other Proud Boys or Oath Keepers? I can't help but think that the pipe bomb is somehow wrapped up in this.
You raid somebody's house when you have probable cause to believe there's evidence of crime contained therein, and a judge has issued a search warrant. So that's why you would raid a house and not just arrest somebody that you have an arrest warrant for. I have a feeling, given the more we learn about the really concerted effort, the conspiratorial effort of the Proud Boys to disrupt in all ways, large and small, it feels like we're going to hear that the pipe bombs were perhaps a Proud Boys production as well. We don't know that yet.
Right.
But the other thing is these boys aren't quite so proud. And I have a feeling we're going to have any number of Proud Boys flipping. We've heard some reports early on that in days past, Enrique Tarrio would try to save himself by providing information to the feds. Once you go down that road, you're likely to go down that road again. So, and it's not just Tarrio. I'm sure it's any of these other Proud Boys who I really think are the weakest of weak people among us. These people are going to flip. These people are going to try to save themselves. They're going to sell out their fellow Proud Boy members. And I have a feeling at some point the floodgates will open and we're going to see lots of cooperating witnesses.
Yeah, and I remember Enrique Tarrio even saying to a documentary film crew, by the way, which is just bananas that they had so many documentary film crews documenting their crimes on January 6th, said, hey, Stuart Rhodes and I, because they had just met in that parking garage briefly, and Tarrio said, hey, we don't get along. He and I don't get along, but we get along for this. So, they don't get along. That tells me a lot. And we know that a guy named Joshua James has already pled guilty to seditious conspiracy.
Yeah.
That's a heavy thing to plead guilty to, and is cooperating. And, if somebody knows who planted those pipe bombs and amidst these cooperators, and I think we will find out who.
I agree. We're going to find out who. And I don't want to circle back to Eastman, but it really was just so sweet to see him put in writing that let's just engage in some minor violations, a little light treason. He is so ready to flip himself because he's going to get got. I mean, I think the moment that I realized he was done was when he claimed his own memo was, quote, crazy if anybody believes I meant what I said in that memo. I mean, talk about consciousness of guilt. So, I do think, we've been waiting a long time for the floodgates to open and for consequential indictments to start dropping. I have a feeling we are closer now than we've ever been.
Yeah, I think Tarrio is definitely consequential, more consequential even than I think Stuart Rhodes. I think he probably will eventually be charged with seditious conspiracy. And one last quick thing. It feels like Eastman was trying to punch holes in the Electoral Count Act to discredit it so that he could push Pence to violate it a little bit further. And we saw that in that email where he said, hey, you called for debate after, without calling the question after debate ended. So you broke it. You violated it. We also violated it by having debate go for more than 2 hours on Arizona. I wonder why debate went for more than 2 hours on Arizona, by the way. But it seemed like a plan. And now, we just recently learned that Pence actually changed his language a second time when he was delivering his, speech on the floor to count the votes. The first was, he changed up that first part of the speech, but then he added, and every state can object after, when they're brought up. And he did that to push back on Eastman. And Greg Jacob, testified to that. It just seemed like Eastman was trying to blow holes, blow open the Electoral Count Act to make it seem not as sacrosanct as it was, so that he could either push Pence to violate it or threaten Pence, say, hey, you broke the law, you violated the law, do what we say, or we're gonna tell on you.
And it feels wrong to even entertain the thought that Pence is something of a hero. That just feels dirty to me. And yet this thing could have ended up a whole different way had Pence not stayed strong and stayed faithful to the Constitution. So with all of the quibbles I have with that man, particularly on policy, you have to give it to him that he stood up to this barrage, and, he didn't necessarily have to.
Yeah, I've been handing it to Greg Jacob. That's who because I don't know him as well as I know Pence. So I have no problem calling him a little bit more of a hero. But I appreciate your time today. Everybody check out Justice Matters. I know you've got a video out about this call to action by Donald Trump, how it involves him in this conspiracy, how you do not need a tacit agreement in order to be a co-conspirator, and all the evidence that could lead to his indictment. Now, it seems to me they are investigating. It seems clear to me they are investigating him at this point, which is, all I've been asking for. We'll see if they are able to put the evidence together to indict him.
Yeah, things are moving in the right direction. And, we've waited a very long time, and we may have to wait a little longer, but I think we're going to get there.
All right. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time today, everybody. Glenn Kirschner